My name is Sandra Alden. I'm 26 years old. And this is the story of how my parents sold my dream car to fund my sister's trip to London, thinking I'd be too quiet to fight back. They were wrong. It happened 3 years ago, but I still remember the smell of the new leather, the humming purr of the ignition, and the way the sunlight glinted off the deep red paint of that car. It wasn't a luxury model by anyone's standard, but it was mine. I had saved for 5 years, working double shifts at the bookstore in our Minnesota town, tutoring kids after school, and selling vintage clothes online. Every cent I scraped together went into that down payment. That car wasn't just transportation. It was proof that I could build something on my own. But my family? They never saw it that way. I was the eldest daughter in a home where being loud got you everything, and being responsible got you nothing. My younger sister, Elise, was the kind of girl who took up space without even trying. Blonde curls, bright blue eyes, a laugh like she was already the star of some reality show. My parents adored her. Always had. When Elise got accepted into a short-term fashion culture experience program in London, she cried at dinner about how she didn't want to miss it, but the tuition and flights were so unfairly expensive. Mom stroked her hair and told her everything would work out. Dad said, "Don't worry, baby, we'll figure something out. Your dreams matter." My dreams? I was sitting right across the table with my car keys in hand, a receipt for the final payment tucked in my wallet. 3 days later, I came home from work and found the driveway empty. I walked inside, confused. "Where's my car?" I asked. My mom didn't look up from the laundry. "We sold it. Elise's program deadline was this week." Everything inside me froze. "You, what? You weren't even using it that much," she replied, as if she were talking about an old coffee maker. "You work from home now." It was just sitting there. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. My father walked in, gave me a firm pat on the back, and said, "You've always been the practical one, Sandra. I knew you'd understand. Besides, Elise's trip is only a few months. It's not forever." I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe a minute. Maybe 10. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. But something in me shifted. Snapped, even. I walked up to my room, closed the door, and sat in silence. On the shelf above my desk was a photo of the car, taken the day I brought it home. I looked at it like it was a photo of a stolen child. A piece of myself had been traded away, not for necessity, not for survival, but for a fleeting luxury my sister wouldn't even appreciate beyond Instagram. That night, Elise posted a selfie at the airport with the caption, "Off to find myself in London. Thanks fam, red heart, #blessed, #wanderlust." I logged off. For the next month, I stayed silent. I packed up my things, filed a notice with my landlord, and accepted a job offer I'd quietly been pursuing with a startup in Austin, Texas. Remote work, but with a relocation bonus and a management track. They didn't know I was running, but I was. The day I left, my parents didn't walk me to the door. Elise didn't even call from London. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom unit near the Colorado River, where the sun felt warmer and the silence finally felt like peace. No one knew it then, but I had begun rebuilding from the ashes of that betrayal. And this time, I wouldn't be sharing any of it. Austin gave me the space I never had back home. For the first time, I could breathe without needing permission. The apartment was modest, a beige box with a flickering porch light and water pressure that only worked when it wanted to, but it was mine. And unlike my parents' house, every inch of it reflected me. I threw myself into work. The startup I joined was rough around the edges but full of ambition. We were building a tool to help independent creators manage digital licensing, nothing glamorous, but important, and growing fast. Within 6 months, I'd moved from content coordinator to team lead. By the end of my first year, I was overseeing 2 departments. I didn't talk about my family. No one asked, and I didn't offer. But every now and then, I'd still think of that car. Not because I missed the machine itself, but because of what it symbolized: 5 years of effort, dismissed in a single afternoon without my consent. Elise returned from London that winter with a new wardrobe, a stack of glossy photos, and no job. My parents threw her a welcome-back dinner like she was some kind of returning diplomat. I saw the pictures online, Elise grinning, Mom and Dad beaming. Not once did anyone mention me. That's when I stopped checking their updates altogether. I muted their numbers. If they wanted to reach me, they could email. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Instead, I kept building. I opened a savings account. I invested in myself, took night classes in leadership strategy, read obsessively about brand growth and executive communications. I started mentoring a group of younger women in tech on Saturdays. It was healing in a way I didn't expect, helping others navigate a world that had often silenced me. By the time I turned 25, I was appointed director of product. One of the youngest ever in the company's history. Our app had hit 100,000 active users, and my team had landed a partnership deal with a global content platform that nearly doubled our valuation. The CEO called me the backbone of the build. Still, I told no one back home. Not until the message came. It was a random Tuesday morning. I was reviewing sprint reports when I saw it, a text from my mother, after nearly a year of silence. Mom, Elise is applying for a modeling contract in Milan. So exciting. Can you help with a small loan for her visa fees? My jaw tightened. No hi. No how are you? Just a request, as if I were a vending machine labeled funds. I didn't reply. 2 days later, she tried again. Mom, Elise said you've been doing well. We're all proud of you. But her dream matters too, Sandra. You always said you believed in women chasing success. Now they wanted to use my values against me. I drafted a reply. I believed in women earning their way. Not riding on someone else's back. Tell Elise to fund her own dreams this time. I never hit send. Instead, I blocked the number. That Friday, while clearing out old files on my laptop, I found the original scan of my car title, the one I had in my name before they sold it. I stared at it, thinking about how little they valued it. How little they valued me. That night, I called a lawyer. I explained everything: the unauthorized sale, the lack of consent, the financial value. She was shocked. You have every right to pursue legal action, especially if the car was in your name alone. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want justice, but because for years, I'd been conditioned to avoid making a scene. But this wasn't about drama. It was about drawing the line. For once, I wanted to choose myself. So I did. We began filing the claim the next week. And once it was in motion, I didn't look back. Not until I got another message, this time from Elise herself. Elise, seriously, Sandra? A lawsuit? Are you that bitter over a stupid car? Grow up. It's called helping family. That was the last straw. I sat down, wrote a short reply, and hit send. It was never about the car. It was about the years I spent being treated like my effort meant nothing. This is the last time anyone takes from me without consequence. Then I muted her number too. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was golden. The legal proceedings took months. My lawyer warned me that since it involved family, the emotional toll might be heavier than the legal one. She wasn't wrong. Every time I signed a document, every time we submitted an affidavit or a bank record, a small voice inside me whispered, "Are you really doing this? Against your own parents?" But that voice wasn't mine. It was the echo of years of gaslighting. Of being told I was too serious, too sensitive, too stiff. It was the voice that tried to guilt me back into silence. I didn't let it win. The evidence was clear: the car was purchased in my name, paid in full by me, registered to my address. My parents had no legal right to sell it, and yet they did, transferring ownership under false pretenses, depositing the check directly into my mother's personal account. The text messages, the sale receipt, the photo of Elise in front of a London townhouse with the caption "Paid for by Love and Fam" all backed my claim. The court date was set for April. Back in Austin, life went on. Promotions, meetings, more growth. I even started looking at houses. Not for anyone else, for me. A place where I could hang art I liked, paint the walls purple if I wanted, and never worry about someone deciding it was theirs just because they felt entitled. But right before the first hearing, I got an email from my father. Subject: think this through. Sandra, this isn't the way to handle family. You're a smart girl. You're successful now. Do you really need the money that badly? We were just helping Elise. You know how fragile she can be. Think of your mother, she's stressed sick. Drop this. Come home. Let's talk like adults. No apology. No ownership. Just pressure wrapped in condescension. I didn't reply. But I did print the email and handed it to my lawyer. She added it to the file. Every word was more proof. The first day in court, I sat on the left side of the room, my lawyer by my side. Across from me were my parents. My mother wore a gray suit I didn't recognize, probably something Elise helped her pick. My father looked tired, but not ashamed. Elise didn't show. I thought I'd feel rage. I didn't. I felt distance, like watching strangers argue about a stranger's life. When the judge asked if I'd be willing to settle out of court, I said no. This isn't about the money, I told him. It's about accountability. When my mother was asked why she sold a car she didn't own, her voice didn't waver. We thought it was under joint family use. Sandra's always been part of the household. We just assumed. Did you ask her permission? The judge interrupted. She paused. No. And did you inform her of the sale? My father stepped in. Not before, no. But we told her afterward. We thought she'd be mature enough to understand. Mature enough. Like maturity meant letting yourself be robbed without protest. After the session, as we were walking out, I passed them in the hallway. My mother reached out. Sandra, don't you see what this is doing to us? I met her eyes. No. I've only ever been told to see what things do to you. Never what they did to me. She looked away. Weeks passed. Testimonies, documentation, everything by the book. They tried to frame it as a misunderstanding. But facts don't bend to sentiment. The law was on my side. The final judgment came in mid-June. They were ordered to repay the full market value of the car, plus legal fees, plus $10,000 in civil damages. To do it, they'd need to dip into their savings and sell off the secondary property in Wisconsin, the same one they'd once talked about converting into a glam getaway for Elise's YouTube channel that never happened. I got the news by email while sitting at a sidewalk cafe in Austin, sipping coffee and reading a book. When I saw the subject line, "Case ruling, win," I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just smiled, closed my laptop, and sat back. It wasn't about revenge. It was about being heard, at last. I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't post about it. But that night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a walk around a used car lot. Not because I needed a vehicle, I had a great one now, and I could afford better. But because I wanted to see one that looked like the one I had lost. I found it in the third row, deep red, slightly older model, with a familiar curve in the hood. I ran my hand over the surface and whispered, "I got you back." Maybe not the exact car. But the dignity that was taken with it? That was mine again. The court win wasn't just a ruling, it was a reckoning. One my family never thought I'd be capable of delivering. 3 days after the judgment, I got an email from my mom. The subject line was blank. The message itself was short. You really went through with it. I hope you're happy. Your father is heartbroken. We might lose the cabin. No acknowledgement of what they did. No apology. Just blame, wrapped in guilt, like always. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on what I had built. With the legal matter behind me, I accepted a speaking invitation at a National Women in Tech Forum in New York. The event would feature founders, CEOs, and investors, people who once felt like distant stars I could never touch. And now, I was one of them. The topic they assigned me? Resilience and leadership in a male-dominated industry. I laughed when I read it. Because surviving my family had prepared me more for that world than any textbook ever could. On stage, I wore a tailored navy blue suit, not flashy, just sharp. I told my story without mentioning names or the lawsuit. But I did talk about being underestimated. About people confusing quiet for weak. And about how, sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop shrinking yourself to protect people who are perfectly comfortable stealing from you. When I stepped down, 3 different women approached me in tears. One said, "That felt like my life. Thank you for saying what I've never had the guts to." That night, I walked through the city alone, the wind tugging at my coat, neon lights painting streaks on the wet pavement. For the first time in years, I felt entirely unburdened. No more explaining. No more hoping someone would see my worth. I had claimed it myself, and that was enough. Then, a week later, it all blew up again. Elise posted a video on TikTok titled, "My sister took my parents to court over a CR?" It had over 200,000 views in 2 days. In it, she painted herself as the victim. Claimed I had always been the jealous, bitter older sister who didn't know how to share. She didn't mention the money that funded her London trip. Didn't talk about the unpaid debt or the fraudulent sale. Just crocodile tears, designer lashes, and a dramatic voiceover about family betrayal. My phone buzzed constantly for the next 48 hours. Old classmates. A few cousins. Even a college professor I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were neutral. Some curious. A few were cruel. I didn't respond to any of it. But I saved the video. Because it would come in handy soon. A week later, I sat with my lawyer again, not about the video, but the property sale. The judge's ruling meant my parents would need to liquidate assets to repay the damages. According to real estate records, they had just listed the Wisconsin property. My lawyer gave me a curious look. "There's an opportunity here," she said. "To buy it?" I asked. "To claim what should have been yours a long time ago." I hesitated. That cabin had been a dream of my dad's. They bought it when I was 16. Back then, I helped repaint the kitchen cabinets. Elise never lifted a finger. But she still got the bigger bedroom with the lake view because she needed it for content creation. My name was never on the deed. But now, it could be. The offer I made was clean. Above asking. All cash. Through a private LLC. 3 weeks later, the deal closed. The Wisconsin lakeside cabin now belonged to me. I didn't gloat. Didn't post about it. But I did drive up there one crisp October weekend, just before the first snow. The air smelled like pine and old wood. The floors still creaked in the same places. The view from Elise's old bedroom was breathtaking. I took that room for myself. I stayed for 3 days, reading, hiking, making coffee in the same chipped mug I used back when I was 16. Except now, no one interrupted me. No one dismissed me. The silence was mine. Before I left, I took one last walk down to the lake. On the dock, I sat and watched the sun dip below the trees. The water glowed amber. I thought about how much had been taken from me over the years. How often I'd been told to step aside. Be nice. Be quiet. Be understanding. And yet, here I was, still standing. Still here. Still mine. Returning to Austin after that weekend in Wisconsin felt like landing in a different version of my life. One where I was no longer just surviving other people's choices, but living by my own. The purchase of the cabin wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about reclaiming a piece of myself that had always been left out of the story. Now, I was writing my own. But life has a way of testing your peace. A month after the cabin sale closed, I came home late from work to find a package leaning against my apartment door. No label. No address. Just my name in blocky handwriting I recognized immediately, my mother's. Inside was a thick envelope, stuffed with old photographs, torn notebook pages, and a letter. The letter began. Sandra. If you're reading this, it means you've made your decision. I won't try to change your mind anymore. But I want you to remember that you're still our daughter. Blood doesn't dissolve in courtrooms. I'm sorry you feel like we betrayed you. I'm sorry you're hurting. Elise is lost, and I don't know how to fix her anymore. She misses you, even if she doesn't say it. I just hope that one day, you'll come back. Mom. There was no mention of the car. No mention of the sale. Not even a hint of real accountability. But in between the lines, I could see something else, a woman who had lost control of the narrative for the first time in her life. And she hated it. I placed the letter in a drawer. Not because I planned to respond, but because something told me I might need it someday. Especially now. Because that very same week, Elise showed up at my building. Uninvited. I found her in the lobby, seated on one of the waiting benches, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. She looked up, saw me, and gave a faint, nervous smile. Hey, she said, standing awkwardly. I didn't move. How did you get in here? She shrugged. Told the front desk I was your sister. It worked. Of course it did. I need to talk to you, she said. Can we go upstairs? No, I replied. Whatever you have to say it here. She looked around. It's kind of public. So was your video. That made her flinch. Her eyes dropped. Okay. Fair enough. She inhaled sharply, then said, Look, I messed up. I thought it was just content. I didn't think it would blow up like that. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You weren't trying to protect me either, I said. I didn't realize you'd go this far, she continued, voice shaky. Taking the cabin? Suing Mom and Dad? You know they had to cash out part of their retirement, right? Do you know they illegally sold my property to send you to London without even telling me? I snapped. They didn't ask. They took. And you smiled your way through it like it was a fair trade. Her shoulders slumped. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. No, Elise, I said calmly. You just never thought I'd stop letting it happen. Silence passed between us. Then she said, barely above a whisper, I'm broke. I blinked. Excuse me? I blew through everything. Nick froze the accounts. Brand deals dried up after the video scandal. No one wants to work with someone who lies about their family for likes. I'm trying to start over, but it's hard. I looked at her, really looked. Gone was the glossy, smug socialite. Standing in front of me was a girl who'd been coddled into incompetence. A woman whose world fell apart the moment no one else was willing to fund her fantasy. I need help, she whispered. Even if it's just a place to crash for a bit. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the audacity never stopped. She still thought she had a key to my life. A right to ask. A claim to comfort I had built with my own 2 hands. No, I said. Her eyes welled. Please. You have so much. And you had every opportunity, I replied. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your bank. And I'm definitely not your safety net. She stepped forward. You're my sister. That's a bond, I said quietly, not a blank check. She didn't say anything more. Just stood there, tears threatening to fall, until I finally turned and walked past her. I didn't look back. That night, I lit a new candle in my apartment. The scent was sandalwood and citrus, clean, quiet, steady. I poured a glass of wine, pulled out my laptop, and opened the journal I'd started on my first trip to the cabin. On the top of a fresh page, I wrote, "You don't owe anyone your ruin, not even the people who raised you." 2 weeks passed. No texts. No calls. No new posts from Elise. The internet had moved on, another trending drama somewhere else. Her 15 minutes of social media sympathy dried up the way her lifestyle had, fast, loud, and empty. But I hadn't forgotten. Because something shifts inside you when you've spent your whole life being the fallback plan, the background character in your own family's story. You stop waiting for recognition. You stop expecting apologies. You start building something permanent, so that when the storms come, you've got more than just hope to stand on. One of those storms hit the following Monday morning. I was sitting in my office in downtown Austin, finalizing a pitch deck for a potential acquisition partner, when my assistant buzzed in. "There's a woman downstairs," she said gently. "She says she's your mother." I closed my laptop slowly. "I'll be down in 5, I said, heart tightening. When I stepped into the lobby, my mother was sitting rigidly on a gray chair, clutching her handbag like it held her spine together. She stood when she saw me. "Sandra." I didn't answer. I just waited. She sighed. "I know you don't want to hear anything from us, but I need to speak to you. It's about your father." That got my attention. "He collapsed last night," she continued. "Stress. Blood pressure. The doctors say he'll be okay, but they're worried. The sale of the cabin, the legal fees, everything's been building." I stayed silent. Not because I wasn't affected, but because I'd heard this song before. Play the guilt card. Frame accountability as cruelty. Weaponize their fragility to make my strength look like punishment. "You could have come to us," she said. "You didn't have to go to court. We're your family." I leveled my eyes at her. "I did come to you. For years. And all I got was silence, dismissal, and stolen dreams. You sold the one thing I worked for, not because you had to, but because you assumed I wouldn't fight back. And now that I have, you're asking for mercy you never gave me." She blinked, stunned by my words. Perhaps by how calm they were. How measured. How final. "I miss you," she whispered. "We all do." I tilted my head slightly. "You miss who I used to be. The daughter who never said no." Then I turned to walk away. But before I could reach the elevator, she called out. "Elise is moving back in with us. She's not doing well. And she blames you." I paused. "That's her choice," I said. "And this time, the consequences are hers, too." Back in my office, I sat for a long moment in the quiet. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was clear. The kind of clarity you only get after walking barefoot through fire and learning not to flinch. The following weekend, I took another trip, this time to Boston. 2 years prior, I had declined a position at the company's East Coast headquarters. I wasn't ready then. Too much healing left to do. Too many pieces of myself still tied to a place that never loved me properly. Now, I was whole. The Boston role had reopened. Not just a promotion, an executive position. VP of Strategic Innovation. During my meeting with the board, one of them leaned back and asked, "Tell us why you're ready now, Ms. Alden." I smiled. Because I've learned that real innovation starts with knowing your worth. And never letting someone else define it for you. I got the job. That night, in my hotel suite overlooking the Charles River, I poured a glass of wine and video called my mentor back in Austin. I told her the news, and she grinned like she'd known all along. "You're not running anymore," she said. "No," I agreed. "I'm not." But even then, I didn't post about it online. No announcements. No watch me now moment. Because some victories aren't for proving anything. They're just for peace. Still, I couldn't ignore the last thing tying me to the past. So before I left Boston, I called my attorney one final time. "I want the car title," I said. "Framed." She laughed. "That's a first." "Not for use," I said. "Foreclosure." It arrived 2 weeks later. A simple matte frame. Inside, the crisp white document. My name at the top. My signature at the bottom. Clear ownership. Proof that no one could take from me again. I hung it in my home office, right above my bookshelf. Not out of spite. Not even as a trophy. But as a reminder that choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival. The day I officially moved to Boston, the city greeted me with golden leaves scattered across the sidewalks and a cold wind that stung just enough to remind you were alive. My new apartment overlooked the water, high up in a building where the walls were thick and the silence was real. I unpacked alone. No welcome party. No balloons. Just the soft hiss of the radiator and the quiet click of boxes being opened. And for once, that was enough. I hung the framed car title above my bookshelf that same night. It looked small up there. Quiet. But it meant everything. Not because of what it used to be, but because of what it represented now. My life, my labor, my boundary. Over the next few months, my role at the company grew quickly. I led strategy meetings with stakeholders from Tokyo to Toronto. I signed off on a pilot AI project that would go on to redefine internal communications across government agencies. I gave keynote talks at women's leadership conferences. Every time someone introduced me as Sandra Alden, VP of Strategic Innovation, I nodded, not from pride, but from peace. Because titles didn't matter half as much as knowing I no longer lived on anyone else's terms. One crisp evening in February, I received a letter. A real letter. Handwritten. The handwriting was uneven, but I knew it immediately. Elise. Sandra. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I swear. I finally started working. Not social media. Real work. A front desk job at a wellness clinic. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. And it's hard. Every day. But for the first time, I come home tired and feel like I actually earned something. I don't know how you did it. How you survived all that without burning out or burning us down. I used to think you were cold. Now I realize you were just strong in ways I couldn't understand. I still don't fully. But I'm trying. Mom still. Mom. She doesn't say it, but I know she misses you. Dad's quieter now. And I'm figuring out who I am when I'm not being babied or rescued or filtered through a camera. You don't have to write back. I just wanted you to know I finally get it. Not everything. But enough. Elise. I read it twice. Then folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer, not because I was ready to forgive, but because I was no longer holding on to hate. Forgiveness, for me, didn't mean going back. It meant walking forward without dragging the past behind me. A few days later, I sat in a meeting with a team of young women fresh out of grad school. One of them raised her hand nervously and asked, "How do you know when you're doing the right thing, even when people around you say you're not?" I looked at her for a moment before answering. When you stop feeling like you have to explain your choices to people who never cared about the cost. She nodded. I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition. Relief. After the meeting, I went home and sat by the window as snow began to fall lightly across the river. The lights from the city reflected in soft ripples, like memories gently blurred by time. My phone buzzed once. A news alert. Something about a former influencer being arrested for fraud over falsified brand collaborations. Elise's name wasn't in the headline, but I didn't need to click. I turned the phone over. Some things you let go not because you've forgotten, but because they no longer own you. I lit a candle, poured a cup of tea, and opened my journal. Sometimes we don't rise by being loved. Sometimes we rise because we had to stand where no one caught us. And that standing, alone, exhausted, uncelebrated, is where we finally discover our power. That night, I fell asleep without dreams. Just peace. Not triumph. Not revenge. Just a steady, quiet calm. And the knowledge that no one, no matter how close, would ever take that from me again. This wasn't just a story about a car. It was about dignity. Boundaries. And the power of choosing yourself when no one else will. Because sometimes, the people who raise you teach you how to survive, not by love, but by absence. And if you're lucky, you learn how to stop surviving and start living. What would you have done in Sandra's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Echoes, where real stories speak louder than revenge.